Welcome to our video supplement here of limits algebraically, specifically looking at the idea of conjugates. So again, we want to emphasize the first thing we should do when looking at a limit is plug in the value of x just to ensure that it isn't a much easier problem than we might initially anticipate. So up top here I get a 0. In the bottom it looks like we're also getting a 0. When we have 0 out of 0, it's an indeterminate form. We don't know exactly what's happening. Now we do know that negative 2 makes a 0, so we should have a factor of x plus 2 on both the top and the bottom. Now how we build that in the bottom, because the denominator looks quite strange here, is we are going to take what we were originally provided, the x plus 2 over 4 minus the square root of x plus 18, and with that we're going to multiply by the conjugate of the denominator. So 4 plus radical 8x plus 18 all over 4 plus radical x plus 18. When we do that, we're going to leave the numerator alone. We're not really going to worry about simplifying anything up in the top of our fraction. Just rewriting it as it initially appears. But then in the denominator, this is a difference of squares really going on, so it'll turn out to be 16 minus x plus 18. Now we have to do a little bit of cleaning up in the denominator. So this will be the limit as x approaches negative 2. Leave the numerator alone. And in the denominator, distribute your negative sign. We're going to have a negative x, and then 16 minus 18 will be a negative 2. And then look at that denominator. What we can do is factor out the negative sign. So this will become limit as x approaches negative 2 of x plus 2. And please, I do want to see your work written out like this, all over the opposite of x plus 2. Now the x plus 2's cancel, and we're going to write it out without the x plus 2's. So we'll get, and that negative can really morph upstairs. We get negative the quantity 4 plus radical x plus 18. Once we plug in the value of x, which is negative 2, and sometimes it's nice to keep the equal signs throughout our problem. But when we plug in negative 2, we'll get that. 4 plus 4 basically, so our limit turns out to be negative 8. Again, keep the limit notation as long as you've got the x in there. Please make sure you cancel out the x plus 2 while you still have the limit, and when we plug in the value of x, that's when we drop the limit notation. We'll look at one other example of conjugates. Now I'm going to go a little bit more quickly here. The numerator is 6, the denominator is 5 minus 31 minus 6 is 25, square root of 25 is 5. Up in the top it was 6 minus 6. It does turn out to be 0 over 0, which is an indeterminate form. Indeterminate form, when we see that square root, it kind of yells at us to consider the conjugate. So x minus 6 all over 5 minus the square root of 31 minus x. We'll take that and we'll multiply by the conjugate of the denominator all over itself. Conjugate of the denominator all over itself. And then we go through, and we want to leave the top alone because we already have the x minus 6 built in the top. But in the denominator, we want to expand things and hopefully build another factor of x minus 6. It's a difference of squares, so it's going to be 25 minus the quantity 31 minus x. This is going to be the limit as x approaches 6 of, rewrite our numerator. Again, we just want to leave it as it is. We don't want to be messing with it at this point. The denominator 25 minus 31 is going to be a negative 6. The opposite of negative x is just going to be an x. Look, we have the common factor of x minus 6. Please cancel that while we still have the limit notation out front. And then once we have canceled, we're going to then plug in the value of x and drop our limit notation. So 5 plus radical 25 is what it looks like we have here. That's just simply going to be 10. So again, really these limits aren't that bad. We're just going to simply go through. If it's a conjugate that we need to employ, both the top and the bottom, we do it, have things cancel, and then we work it out.